What if the scariest stories you've ever heard weren't just legends, but real? True events, so disturbing, so unexplainable, that even science walks away in silence. From ghostly whispers in the dark, to violent exorcisms that end in death. These are the 7 most disturbing cases related to the paranormal that science can't explain. Number 1. The Haunting of the Perrin Family. When The Conjuring came out in 2013, many thought it was just a scary movie, but very few knew it was based on a real, terrifying story that science still can't explain. It was 1971 when the Perrin family moved into their dream home, a massive, eerie farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. They had no idea that this house, nestled deep in the woods, would soon become their living nightmare. Strange things started happening almost immediately. Brooms moved by themselves, scratching and knocking noises echoed in empty rooms. Furniture began to shift, and an overpowering, stinky air filled the basement. But the most unsettling was the ghostly figures the daughters began to see. One spirit, a woman named Bathsheba, seemed to be at the center of the terror. Bathsheba, a former resident and rumored witch, was said to have lived on the land and harbored dark energy. Her presence was foul, and she seemed to have it out for the mother of the family, Carolyn. As things grew worse, the family reached out to famous paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. During a seance, Carolyn was levitated, her body contorted, and she spoke in a strange, unearthly voice. What followed was even worse. The family's situation escalated, and after 10 years of torment, they finally fled the house. To this day, no one can fully explain the terrifying forces that haunted the Perrin family. And that's not the only chilling case of paranormal terror. Across the Atlantic, in England, another family would face horrors of their own. Number 2. The Enfield Poltergeist Disturbance. In the quiet suburbs of Enfield, London, 1977, something began to stir in the Hodgson family home. It started innocently, strange knocking sounds. At first, Peggy Hodgson, a single mother of 4, thought it was just the house settling. But then, things began to move on their own. Tables shifted. Chairs slid across the floor by themselves. The unsettling noises grew louder, and Peggy's daughters, Janet and Margaret, began claiming that someone, or something, was in their room. Soon, a local police officer witnessed the furniture move, confirming that something unexplainable was happening. Janet began to speak in a deep, raspy voice, an old man's voice. Objects flew across the room, and disembodied whistling echoed through the house. Investigators Maurice Gross and Guy Leon Playfair documented everything. They were convinced the house was haunted by a poltergeist. But then things got darker. Janet was hospitalized, yet, despite medical explanations, the events escalated. No one could make sense of it. Was it a hoax, or was it a truly malevolent spirit? To this day, the Enfield Poltergeist is one of the most famous yet inexplicable paranormal cases ever. Number 3. The Dyatlov Pass Mystery. January 1959. 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, embarked on a journey through the freezing Ural Mountains in Russia. They set up camp in a remote valley known as Dyatlov Pass. But when they failed to return, a search party was sent, and what they found was horrifying. The group's tent was slashed open from the inside. Their belongings were left behind. Clothes, shoes, food, still untouched. Some of the hikers were found barefoot despite the sub-zero temperatures. 2 bodies were discovered near a campfire, burned and mutilated, with strange injuries. And then, the most chilling discovery. A hiker's eyes had been removed. Another's tongue was gone. There were signs of radiation on the hikers' clothing. Some had crushed ribs, and one of them had a cracked skull. What could have caused such a brutal, unexplained death? An avalanche theory was proposed, but it doesn't explain the injuries or the strange behavior of the hikers before they died. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened at the Dyatlov Pass, only that it remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in modern history. Number 4. The Black Monk of Pontefract. The Black Monk of Pontefract is considered one of the most violent and terrifying hauntings in British history. The story begins in 1966, when the Pritchard family moved into a house on the outskirts of Pontefract, Yorkshire. Almost immediately, they started experiencing strange, terrifying events. The house was plagued by violent poltergeist activity. Furniture overturned, loud banging noises, and ghostly figures. But the most horrifying aspect of the haunting was the appearance of a black monk. He would appear in the shadows, cloaked in dark robes, and was said to have an oppressive, demonic presence. Things escalated quickly. The family reported that objects were hurled across rooms, and they would hear chanting at night. One of the daughters was physically attacked by the spirit, with bruises and scratches appearing on her body. The haunting grew so severe that the family fled the house in fear. The Black Monk left an enduring legacy of terror, and the house is still considered one of the most haunted locations in the UK. Number 5. The South Shields Poltergeist. In 2005, the quiet town of South Shields, England, was rocked by one of the most disturbing cases of modern-day paranormal activity. The story centers around the Hughes family, who began experiencing strange events in their home. It all started with a sound of knocking on the walls, but soon it escalated. The family received text messages from unknown numbers, some of which seemed to be sent by a spirit. The strange occurrences didn't stop there. Lights flickered, objects moved, and the family's phones would mysteriously die. But the most unsettling part? The entity seemed to be actively communicating with them. It even called their daughter by name. The family was so disturbed that they sought help from a team of paranormal investigators. However, despite their efforts, the activity continued, and no scientific explanation could account for the phenomenon. The South Shields poltergeist remains one of the most baffling cases in recent paranormal history. Number 6. Paranormal Celle Possession. In 1906, in a convent in South Africa, a young girl named Clara Germana Celle underwent a terrifying transformation. Clara, a deeply religious young woman, began exhibiting strange behavior. She would speak in languages she had never learned, and her demeanor became unrecognizable. Violent outbursts, deep growls, and an unnatural strength overtook her. Witnesses claim Clara levitated, floated across the room, and her eyes turned black. Religious leaders, including priests and nuns, witnessed the bizarre events. They performed several exorcisms, but nothing seemed to stop her. Clara's case was one of the most widely documented and terrifying possessions of the 20th century. Was she truly possessed by the devil, or was something else at play? Number 7. the Tanaku exorcism case. In a remote monastery on the wind-swept hill of Tanaku, Romania, a deeply unsettling event occurred, one that blurred the lines between faith, madness, and something far darker. Her name was Marisica Irina Cornisi, a 23-year-old nun with a tragic past. She had lost a father at the age of 2, grown up in a harsh orphanage, and returned home after years abroad, seeking peace in God. But peace never came. In 2005, strange behaviors began. Irina would giggle uncontrollably during prayer, scream in unfamiliar languages, and claim to hear voices mocking her from the shadows. The other nuns grew terrified. They said she refused holy water, reacted violently to crucifixes, and often spoke in a deep, unnatural voice that wasn't her own. Doctors diagnosed her with schizophrenia and released her after a brief hospital stay. But Irina herself was convinced it wasn't a sickness, it was something worse. She told the priest that the devil was inside her, whispering vile things. She begged for an exorcism. Father Daniel Petru Corino, a monk at the monastery, agreed. He believed she was truly possessed. What followed was horrifying. The exorcism began with prayers and chants, but Irina fought violently. The priest and nuns tied her to a wooden cross, gagged her with a towel, and tried to force the demon out. For 3 days she remained restrained, without food or water, as they performed the ancient rite. During those days, witnesses claimed she spoke in multiple voices, predicted death, and hissed when holy verses were read. Her strength seemed inhuman, but on the 3rd day, she lost consciousness. By the time they called for help, it was too late. She died on the way to the hospital. The official cause? Dehydration, exhaustion, and an overdose of antipsychotic medication. Father Daniel and the nuns were arrested and convicted of her death. But to this day, they insist they did nothing wrong, that they were fighting a real demon. And the question still lingers like a shadow in the monastery halls. Was she mentally ill? Or was something darker truly inside her? What happens when science can't explain the unknown? Some stories find their way into our nightmares, unanswered. But maybe the scariest part isn't just what we don't know. It's what might still be waiting out there, watching, waiting, and perhaps following.